Hello everyone and welcome back to the MS-DOS project. Unfortunately, with starting school and work and dating and a lot of other things that have been going on in my life, making videos has really fallen on the back burner. It's partially my own fault too, as I have been playing a lot of games, just not really recording any or playing the ones that I've wanted to or promised to review. So I realized that I do want to make content and I do want to continue to put out videos. So I'm going to start with this today, but going forward I will continue to just record games as I play them and then just kind of talk about them even if they're not directly DOS related. The Ultima 6 review is coming. That will probably be one of the next videos I work on. It's just getting through that game is really long and I haven't really touched it in a while. So I just need to sit down and play through it and then I'll get that video out to y'all. Today we'll be starting a new series highlighting what are known as edutainment titles. Since the early years of video gaming, there were people that saw the medium as an interesting new way to help teach children about various subjects. One of the earliest and most popular examples of this was Oregon Trail, first developed by a teacher in 1971, with iterations for personal computers and other devices continuing into the modern day. As the market for these products and computer games in general grew, there were several companies that formed to develop and publish educational titles. The Learning Company was one of these, a brand and developer that changed ownership several times, but consistently turned out educational software. In an effort to cut costs of research and development in the late 90s, the company focused hard on mostly redistributing and repackaging older titles and churning out software, which in addition to their predatory market practices and buyouts of competition, is often credited with the eventual collapse of the market for edutainment titles in the early 2000s. Despite their focus on reusing older products, they did continue to publish some good educational games through the sale of the company to Mattel until they were dissolved. One of these was Arthur's Wilderness Rescue, based off of the long-running PBS cartoon Arthur. Originally published in 2000 as Arthur's Camping Adventure, the game was subsequently renamed and redistributed several times over the next few years. It was developed by Imagine Engine Corp., a small developer who mostly focused on licensed titles from their founding in 1984 up through their dissolution in the early 2010. The game did initially get a big box release, although it appears there wasn't much special to it besides the small amount of documentation. Subsequently, it was simply released in either a jewel case or a cardboard sleeve, eventually ending up as a kid's meal prize at fast food restaurants. In fact, I'm fairly certain this is how I got my copy, as I played this game a lot growing up and still have my original disc. Once you boot up the game, after a few loading screens, you are shown the introduction of the game, which is fairly self-explanatory.
A camping we will go, a camping we will go. Hi-ho, the Dario, a camping we will go.
Are we there yet, Mr. Ratburn?
It's not far now.
Are we there yet?
It's not far now.
Are we there?
Yes, we're here!
Oh!
Okay, now, is that everyone?
It is now.
I still can't believe DW's going camping with us.
Yeah, I'm the only kid in class who has to bring his little sister along.
Now, Arthur, be nice to your sister. You know that with your parents out of town, you couldn't have come on this trip unless she came too.
That would have been fine with me.
All right, class. Don't forget that one reason we're taking this class camping trip is to view the wildlife. Everyone gets a notebook, and whoever sees the most insects will earn a special certificate. Now, just a moment. Does anyone know where the trail map is?
Before I move on, I do have to say that the setup seems kind of odd when you think about it for more than a few seconds. In the context of the show, Arthur and his classmates are third grade students in Mr. Ratburn's class. I get that 2000 was a little tamer of a time, but in no situation would several 8-year-olds and DW be allowed to go on a weekend trip into the woods with only one adult. Just something to think about. Once the intro is finished, you are dropped straight into the game world and introduced to some of the mechanics. The entire game can be controlled with the mouse and occasional use of the arrow keys, which was really a smart design choice, as it makes it a lot easier for small children to get into. Besides clicking and dragging, there are two small icons at the bottom which serve as the two main menus in the game. The one on the left is the technical things with buttons for saving and loading, as well as audio options and quitting. Saving gives you these 6 little picture-looking boxes on this billboard that you can click on at any time to save, and when you save a game in that slot, it will show you a shot of the scene you're currently in. The audio options allows you to control the volume of the voice acting and music separately, as well as an option to turn off the music entirely. Nothing too complicated as the primary audience is children, but it is nice to have a few options to be able to adjust. On the topic of sound, it would be a good time to mention the audio in the game. The voice acting is well done and syncs up with the actual on-screen animation most of the time. Though I think it's just Windows 98, the PC I captured it on. I remember it being much more smooth when I played it on Windows XP, but that could also be nostalgia, I'm not sure. Even though none of the credited voice actors were the same as the actors in the show, they all did a good job of portraying the characters to sound close to the TV show, which goes a long way to make this a good licensed product. The music, on the other hand, is a bit of a mixed bag. There's essentially one track that repeats throughout the majority of the game, and here it is. I do think this tune is pretty good. It feels right at home in the game's atmosphere, tone, and setting, but I wished it was a little more varied. Personally, I grew up playing this game all the time, so I don't mind too much, though my mother still recognizes the song even over the phone. But if it really becomes a problem, you can turn the volume on it way down or off entirely. The good news is, though, that this is not the only track you will hear all game. In certain mini-games, environments, and during certain sequences, there are other tracks played. Here are some good examples.
Buster! Look! It's our food bag!
But, Arthur, what's that? Sorry. Sorry.
Oh!
Alongside the overall strong audio presentation comes a very good visual presentation as well. Everything is drawn in the style of the show, with the backgrounds being a more watercolor style and the foreground items more clear, and it all looks great. Not only is it consistent stylistically, but it's always pretty clear what everything is. This helps immensely when being able to find everything you're looking for, which could be frustrating for an adult, but even so for a small child. Maybe some of the Sierra adventure games could take hints from this. The icon next to the main menu in the game is the backpack, which contains the map, a nature journal, and any items you may collect during the game. The first task you were given is to give the map to Mr. Ratburn, which frustratingly enough, I found to be the only really picky part of the game. Sometimes you drag the map right onto him and it doesn't seem to register properly. But this is really the only moment in the game I ever had a problem. Every other time that I needed to drag and drop an item, it just seemed to work. Once you give Mr. Ratburn the map, the class takes the trail into the campsite. Upon arrival at the campsite, Mr. Ratburn is distracted reading the map and trips over a log, badly twisting his ankle. And come to find out that it was not an insignificant walk to the camp area, as there doesn't seem to be any possibility of them walking back to the parking lot and the ranger station to get help. Again, bringing one adult on a camping trip with a whole class of 3rd graders to the backwoods seems like an extremely poor choice. From here, you're given a fairly easy puzzle, building a tent for Mr. Ratburn to rest in while your class finds some way to get help. As with the rest of the puzzles in this game, this one's pretty easy and quick to solve, but for a younger child it will be stimulating enough to make them think while also being fun. After you helped Mr. Ratburn get settled and left him in questionable hands...
Don't worry, Mr. Ratburn. I'll take care of you. I know lots of first aid.
Ow!
Whoops, sorry.
Be careful with my ankle, DW! Please!
You were given perhaps the biggest choice you need to make throughout the whole game.
You guys! Mr. Ratburn can't walk. He's in his tent with DW right now. What are we going to do?
Well, at least we've got some food.
Bad news. I just went to look for a snack and our food bag's been stolen. Dragged away.
Bears!
Oh, great! Now our food is gone too!
We're going to have to think of some way to get out of here without Mr. Ratburn. Does anyone have any ideas?
I brought my two-way radio. I'll just call for help. Oh no, it's broken.
Now what are we going to do?
I've got an idea. It's something my dad told me about. We could climb to a really high place and then use a mirror and sunlight to flash a signal in Morse code.
That's a neat idea, Pinky. What do you think, Brain?
Yes, that's an option. Or, with the right parts, I could fix my radio. Then we could use it to call for help.
Another great idea!
I have a suggestion, Arthur. Why don't you go fly a kite?
Francine, this is an emergency. Try to be helpful.
Actually, that's a pretty good idea. We could use a kite to signal for help.
Yeah, I guess that would work.
Well, it seems to me that we've heard 3 workable solutions. Francine's kite, Binky's signal mirror, and my radio. Whose idea do you think we should pursue?
Although this seems like a big choice, in the end it isn't very consequential, as all it affects is which items become available in the world to collect for your end goals, and they all require finishing the same puzzles to collect. From here, you're given the freedom to go in several directions at your leisure to find the required items. Several times you may see an item in the world, but have to solve a puzzle to get to it. Other times you will have to do favors for other characters, such as putting a tent together to receive them. From here, the game proceeds in a fairly straightforward fashion, similar to a more traditional point-and-click adventure. You move between areas by clicking the edge of the screen in different directions when the mouse cursor indicates, and pick up items by clicking them. There's more to simply do than walk around and collect all the items you need, however. Not every area will necessarily be accessible from the start, and some of the stuff you need you will find, but be unable to access for various reasons. Because of this, you have to solve several puzzles, and get a few more items than just the basic things that you need to be able to contact help in order to progress. Of course, beyond the environmental item-based puzzle solving that comprises most of the game, there are several mini-games you have to do to get certain things or get into certain areas, such as balancing across the log bridge, a canoe game, and a maze. Each of these is explained by DW, popping up and chiming in, which Arthur doesn't really seem to appreciate.
Use your mouse to help Arthur walk through the maze. Click anywhere on the screen, and Arthur will try to walk in that direction. Or, if you prefer, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to do the same thing. Good luck.
DW, this is my adventure.
Besides just collecting items to help you progress, there are a few optional things you can do along the way. One of them is taking pictures of animals that are found around the area for your nature journal. If on any screen you move the mouse around at certain spots, your cursor will turn into a camera, which will, when clicked, will pull up the journal, show a new entry, and read it out to you. Although these are fairly basic in nature, it is interesting to see and would be cool for a younger kid playing the game, and this is really where the whole educational aspect comes into the game. There's also an optional fossil you find if you go down the side of a cliff and grab onto a certain branch before you slide. This isn't very important, but it does change the ending a small amount. Luckily, none of these tasks seem extremely tedious or long-winded. In fact, on my recent playthrough for this review, my footage was less than an hour and a half in total. Of course, if you don't know it well, it may take longer, but it's a very short game overall. Once you collect the objects you need and bring them back to Brain, you will need to get to the top of Mount Rockslide to be able to signal for help. This requires a quick rock climbing mini-game where you're trying to beat Muffy up to the top. All you need to do is click rocks and hope the one you jump on doesn't collapse or have rocks fall on your head. Once you hit the top, the ending cutscene triggers.
I did it! I made it to the top!
Here you signal for help and a park ranger comes out to help Mr. Ratburn. If you collected the fossil, you can show it to him and he tells you about it. You also get a printable certificate if you found all of the animals to take pictures of in the game. The park ranger will then tell a spooky story before the credits roll. Overall, for being a cheaply produced edutainment game that was included in kids' meals, I would say this is a fairly solid product. The production value is good with all the characters sounding as they should, the gameplay is fun, and the educational value is implemented in such a way that it fits and is kind of fun to uncover as well. It's not something that most adults would find engaging for very long, but for younger kids and fans of the Arthur TV show, I would say it's worthwhile, especially for parents looking for an educational game that their kid will still enjoy. I would definitely recommend it. I just want to thank everyone who tuned in this video, even if it wasn't the most interesting or exciting thing. I just wanted to kind of get something out and be able to put out a product and kind of get my momentum going. But in the meantime, if there are any games you would like me to review, let me know. And they don't have to be strictly DOS or early Windows games. I'd really like to check anything out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Just a litter. One day, I met a man stuck in a tree. He was shaking like a leaf and claimed he had just met Scarnose. He explained to me, I know it's wrong, but I was tossing my candy wrappers on the ground as I was hiking through the woods. When I stopped to eat my lunch, I heard a loud rustling in the bushes behind me. I turned around to face the biggest, meanest, hungriest looking bear I had ever seen. It had a huge scar right across its nose and was licking my old candy wrappers.